At exactly 7:12 a.m., 3 members of the HOA board appeared at my remote log cabin in the Smoky foothills. They wore matching fleece vests, carried clipboards, slapped a laminated citation on my pine door, and then posed for a group selfie as if they had just taken down a terrorist. The absurdity? My cabin wasn't even under their authority. Hell, it wasn't even in their county. My name is Dustin Harrow, 44 years old. A soft-spoken software engineer who once lived in Alia Estates, a suburban Tennessee neighborhood where HOA politics consumed everything. To escape the noise, I bought a quiet, off-grid retreat 2 hours away. No Wi-Fi, no board meetings, just a wood stove and a trout-filled creek. I thought I'd left the madness behind. I couldn't have been more wrong. Back in Alia Estates, the HOA was ruled with an iron grip by Tamara CVY, a pearl-draped tyrant with bleached hair and a vendetta against what she labeled uninvolved homeowners. After I stopped attending their mind-numbing Zoom debates, the last straw was a 4-hour argument about mailbox glossiness. I unknowingly became her personal enemy. It started with letters. One Tuesday morning, I received a certified envelope, accusing me of illegal detachment from community oversight. Tamara claimed my mountain cabin violated the neighborhood's aesthetic unity protocols. I wrote back politely, pointing out that my cabin wasn't even part of Alia Estates. Her reply, a $500 per week fine for visual non-compliance. At first I thought it had to be a prank. Who fines someone for property outside their jurisdiction? Then came the spying. My neighbor Jerry Blandon called, laughing but uneasy. He'd spotted Tamara's husband, Roger, flying a drone to film my cabin from the public road. Another neighbor, Sarah Hutchinson, actually caught Tamara herself sneaking around, photographing my compost bin while muttering about feral landscaping. She had driven 2 hours just to snap. Pictures of my vegetable garden. Things escalated when I received a fat envelope from the HOA's law firm. Inside was a lien notice against my townhouse back in Alia Estates, demanding $30,000 in unpaid HOA fees tied to off-site structures. My hands trembled as I read it. They were really trying to seize my actual home over a cabin that had nothing to do with them. I turned to Clive Hennings, a retired JAG officer turned property lawyer. When he saw their so-called jurisdiction map, he nearly fell out of his chair laughing. Someone had literally drawn the HOA boundary wider with a black Sharpie to include my land, complete with a crude X over my cabin. Clive immediately countersued for harassment, fraudulent lien placement, and trespassing, and fired off cease and desist letters to the board. But Tamara doubled down. She started mailing me daily violations, everything from unauthorized wildlife feeding because of my bird feeders, to improper waste management for my fully legal septic system. Then came the turning point. Channel 7 News aired a segment titled HOA Leader Claims Control Over Unaffiliated Land. The interview was television gold. Tamara, sitting with flawless curls and pearls, explained her theory of extended governance using hand puppets. A princess puppet represented the HOA, while a troll puppet represented defiant homeowners. The anchor's struggle to keep a straight face was unforgettable. Within days, I had a restraining order. Sheriff Tom Garrett, who actually held jurisdiction over my cabin, issued a public statement. This land has no HOA and never will. Also stop stapling laminated notices to trees. That's littering. He'd caught them mid-mission. An emergency HOA meeting followed. Harold Simmons, the sweating vice president, revealed that Tamara had blown $8,000 of community money on her crusade, including 5 nights at a lakeside bed and breakfast for surveillance, plus night vision goggles and a GPS tracker. Homeowners erupted. Even her allies turned on her. The district attorney indicted her for fraud and misuse of funds. Her mugshot, lipstick perfect but hair wild, splashed across the front page under the headline, HOA President Goes Rogue. At trial, Clive introduced the Sharpie-altered map as Exhibit A. The courtroom erupted when he pointed out the pirate-style X Tamara had drawn over my cabin like buried treasure. The judge had to call for order multiple times. Prosecutor Rebecca Morrison laid out the rest. Tamara had created a secret Facebook group, Alia Enforcement Squad, where 43 members earned Starbucks gift cards, paid with HOA funds for spying on my cabin. Worst of all, Tamara had accidentally live-streamed herself trespassing at 2 a.m., clipboard in hand, measuring the spacing between my garden gnomes. Witnesses piled on. An elderly resident testified that Tamara tried to recruit her to sign a petition extending HOA control to any property owned by Alia residents worldwide, complete with a cheesy PowerPoint. A landscaper revealed she offered him cash to plant non-compliant flowers in my garden so she could fine me for them. Finally, Tamara herself took the stand, pearls shining under the courtroom lights. She claimed she was safeguarding property values. But when pressed on how a cabin 2 hours away could possibly threaten suburban Tennessee homes, she launched into an incoherent rant about aesthetic contamination and the broken windows theory. The judge pinched the bridge of his nose as though fighting off a migraine. During cross-examination, Tamara conceded that she had never actually set foot in any other residents' vacation homes. When pressed on why she had targeted me in particular, she explained that I had skipped the HOA potluck 3 years running and never donated to the annual bake sale. With an utterly straight face, she claimed that repeated absences from social functions were a warning sign of what she called community detachment disorder, a diagnosis she had apparently invented on the spot. The prosecutor then dropped a bombshell. Tamara had poured more than $12,000 of her own money, not just HOA funds, into private investigators. The first 2 firms refused to investigate properties outside HOA boundaries, so she hired a third company, which pocketed her cash and handed her nothing but Google Earth screenshots. The evidence didn't stop there. Investigators uncovered a fake lien, proof of misused funds, and emails in which she plotted to hire actors dressed as code enforcement officers. She had fabricated violation notices with ordinance numbers that didn't exist and even attempted to have my cabin condemned by filing false health reports with the county, the strangest. Discovery was a massive binder. She had labeled Project Rustic Compliance. Inside were meticulous plans to seize not only my property, but also 17 other vacation homes owned by Alia residents. She had drawn maps, drafted inspection schedules, and created special violation forms tailored to off-grid properties. On page 47, there was even a crayon sketch of something she called the Greater Alia Empire, complete with tiny flags planted across 3 different states. A forensic accountant testified that Tamara had built a secret budget hidden within HOA accounts. She disguised her spending under labels such as miscellaneous beautification and emergency aesthetic response. Over the course of 18 months, nearly $40,000 had been funneled into her surveillance schemes, including the purchase of a used van, which she painted to resemble an official HOA patrol vehicle. Complete with magnetic decals and a flashing amber light bar, the verdict was swift and crushing. She was convicted on every count: fraud, embezzlement, harassment, and abuse of fiduciary authority. Judge William Hartley, a senior district judge, delivered a blistering rebuke, declaring that in 3 decades on the bench, he had never witnessed such an outrageous distortion of HOA power. He described her conduct as delusional, spiteful, and borderline psychotic. Her sentence was severe. She was banned from all HOA involvement statewide, ordered to pay $50,000 in restitution to the HOA plus $30,000 to me for legal fees and emotional distress, and given a federal prison term of 3 years with 2 suspended. That left 1 year behind bars, followed by 2 years of probation and 300 hours of community service, specifically assisting people who were dealing with HOA disputes. On top of that, she was required to undergo a psychiatric evaluation, attend monthly therapy sessions about power abuse and boundaries, and a real estate license was revoked for 5 years, effectively killing her property management career. She was also barred from living in any HOA community for a full decade after her release. When the sentence was read, Tamara's face shifted from crimson to pale to an alarming shade of purple. She jumped to her feet so quickly that her chair clattered backward. shouting that this was all part of a conspiracy against dedicated community leaders. She ranted about how the judge didn't grasp the sacred role of aesthetic continuity. As the bailiffs moved in, she snatched her purse and hurled her HOA president's gavel toward the prosecutor, missing badly. 2 bailiffs dragged her out while she screamed about falling property values and the disaster of mismatched mailbox designs. Her final shriek before the courtroom doors slammed shut was, "You'll all regret this when your mailboxes don't match."